React Native with serverless, focus on the product, not the code. Bartosz Klukaczewski.
Okay. Dzięki. Thanks, Kuba. Okay, can you hear me? Okay, is everything okay? Okay. So my name is Bartosz. I come from Gdańsk, the most wonderful place in Poland. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's really amazing to be part of it, to see so many of you. As Kuba said, I work as React Native consultant at STX Next. So I work mostly, but not only, with mobile projects here. My today presentation will be about React Native. It's the technology I love the most, but in a serverless environment, which will be Google Firebase. So let's start. So first, let's ask a question: what is React Native? Because I already mentioned it, but let's have some background first. It's cross-platform native mobile app development framework, so it gives results for both iOS and Android. This is what cross-platform means. It is based on React and JSX, and thanks to that, it's really easy to learn by web front-end developers because it utilizes the same mechanism, like React in the web. And the most important thing, why it is so groundbreaking, or it was so groundbreaking when it got released, is that it gives native results, but with JavaScript. It's completely different approach than hybrid apps running with Cordova, which were relying on a web view. With React Native, we can use custom native modules to access device native features like camera, Bluetooth, geolocation, or push notifications, or any other sensors you would like to use. But at the end, the UI is made of native components, which is really great for the user experience because the app can feel like part of the operating system. It's not like a web page. React Native also offers some really nice tools for development, which can make it competitive to single platform native development in terms of development costs and timeframes. It has great open source community because more and more people, also here at STX Next, I can look here, more and more of you know how to use it. The people are gaining their experience in commercial projects. But let's move to the second part of the title of this presentation, which is serverless. But what does it mean, serverless? Because it's quite tricky. It was really hot word in 2018. It was mentioned quite a lot. But does it really mean it's without a server? No, not at all. Because how can you not have servers? So it's just, the name doesn't really fit here. Serverless, by definition, is an execution model where the cloud provider runs the server and dynamically manages the allocation of machine resources. This is why I'm reading it, because of the definition slide. It means that the server is being shut down once the code is executed. So we usually just pay for the execution time. We don't pay for the whole server. It's not our server. We just pay for the resources the server is using. But at the end, developers do not have to worry about infrastructure. It's some kind of simplification, but at some cost. Some operation may be hidden from the developer, but for its own good. So developers can focus on what's most important for them. While infrastructure is really important, it's crucial as long as it's reliable. But the features and user experience, or just the product, is what matter the most. But I would guess it would be easier to go by example. So here we have Google Firebase. Google Firebase is part of Google Cloud Platform. It was launched seven years ago and acquired by Google 2 years later. What is great about Firebase is that most common and useful features are already included and can be used quite often in a single line of code. like authentication for signing in, signing up, signing out, also social authentication. There are some other additional nice tools, like we get out of the box the persistence layer for data, cloud data sync, offline mode support, and many others. There are some additional things, more business or product oriented in the Firebase platform, like Google Analytics, and also tools to measure and increase user engagement, like Firebase Cloud Messaging for push notifications, which is becoming the standard after GCM is going to be shut down. There are so many modules here in the Firebase. I will show some overview of them later, but for now, there will be not enough time during this presentation to show all of them. But I'd like to mention some really nice things like BigQuery for analytics when it's not enough. And also, there's even a machine learning kit, which allows to mobile developers to use machine learning in a way they can handle. It's like it's much easier to do than machine learning frameworks in Python. But also, less possibilities here. What's really interesting that we couldn't really call Firebase a serverless until the cloud functions, this is the name of the product, got released. Because we were not able to run our custom code. But since 2018, we can. Cloud functions is based on Node.js. I will cover this topic a little bit more later. But let's have some example of connecting Google Firebase with React Native. OK, so here we have a little bit of code. No worries, this is the only code will be in this presentation. No more code. As you can see here, we have just a single method which signs in the user. And that's it, actually. So the rest of the code is just some wrapper which does actually nothing. So this single method is doing actually everything for you. It sends that provided email, those function arguments, email and password, to Firebase. Those credentials get validated there at the backend. And if they are valid, there's a success. We can maybe navigate the user to the sign-in screen, user for the screen for sign-in users only. And at the backend, the user object is being created. And there's also additional magic happening here, like the user token is being saved in the storage. So we don't have to worry about saving the token in a secure place. It's being done automatically. And also, later, we can easily access the user from the Firebase. So this is just a really simple API. We don't really have to worry about authentication anymore. So as long as we do not log out explicitly or clear application data, the user will be still there. So here with this example, you also see that it's utilizing best user experience practices. So after we have registered, we don't have to log in manually. It's being done automatically. And if something bad will happen, we'll go to this catch error phase. Here, an error will be returned, and this error is really meaningful. It's not like really generic. It will show how to fix. So if there is something wrong with email or password, then it will be shown, and user can act, can fix his mistake. And there is no additional backend here. This is everything happening just by the API. This is all the API we have here, and we don't have to worry about what's happening next with the user. We can, if you would like to, we can add some additional cloud functions here to the hook. We can create a hook for the database when the user gets created. So we can, for example, send him an additional thank you email, or maybe give them a coupon if we are running some campaign, or maybe create some initial data for the user. And this is happening in the cloud functions. Here's the overview of the services for Firebase. We can group them in three packs about building the applications, about app quality, and more business-oriented. Today, I will focus mostly on the left-hand side of the overview here. I will be talking about Cloud Firestore, cloud functions, authentication, and that's it, because there will be not enough time. We could have really long presentation for this one. There are some really nice features like Crashlytics for stability reporting, and also some features maybe your application are already using, like Google Analytics or cloud messaging, or maybe remote coughing. Those are quite common ones. Okay, so if we know what React Native is and what Firebase is, why not put them together? That example I was showing you before, it was a React Native code. It wasn't it wasn't Java, it was JavaScript. So synergy effect between those two technologies is really great, as both are really startup friendly in terms of development costs, but also that React Native is cross-platform, so we get one application with single code base. I mean, we have single code base, but two applications for iOS and Android. So this can lead to a lot of savings. It's also really easy to learn, because both of those are based on JavaScript. Both are quite nice, well documented and popular. The community support is really amazing for both of those technologies, and also for module which is connecting those two worlds. As you can see, it has around 5,000 stars at GitHub and really a lot of downloads. So as we have no real backend, there's no need to take some maintenance costs, and some features are already working out of the box, like I was showing you with the signing in. But we need to be really aware that React Native Firebase is not as good as fully native Firebase for Android or iOS. It is always a little bit behind. It's because it doesn't have official support. So it is being supported by the open source community. But as we can see some numbers here, and on the right-hand side we have a graph. A lot of features are already supported, and we can go on production with it. So if we know tools, React Native and Firebase, how to make the best use of them? So let's go back to the subtitle of my presentation. Focus on the product, not the code. Because coding is fun, isn't it? But sometimes it's just not enough. So we can focus on the user and not the sign-in infrastructure. It's one of the most basic and common use cases, user authentication. So instead of developing backend, maybe some token-based authentication like JWT or anything, and struggling with integrating our backend with Google or Facebook authentication and connecting that backend to the client, why do not to take one step back and think about who is the user, how the user would like to be authenticated, and or even signing in even necessary? So if we develop maybe, for example, an app for the professionals, like we create some recruitment portal for developers, we can give them GitHub authentication, which is over here, and Google. And this is some features we can get from Firebase out of the box. If we do some maybe lifestyle or fashion applications, some social media, then going with Facebook, Twitter, or maybe even Instagram, it can be really a great idea. And with Firebase, we can integrate social auth in just a few lines of code. It's not as simple as the example I was showing you before. It won't be one single line of code. It will be a little bit more. But still, it will be really easy, just a few lines. I promise you, but this time I won't show it. As developer, I was working on projects where product owners had to make really hard decision to remove or maybe postpone some feature, and quite often it was the social authentication. So it was postponed or removed from the scope of the project mostly because of cost of time frames. There was just no time for it. But what if this feature could be delivered 5 times faster comparing to competitive technologies? And in my opinion, this is really quite good estimation for it. So with Firebase, we can have it almost out of the box. There are some additional nice tweaks, like if, for example, same user would like to sign in with multiple ways. One time with email, another time with Facebook, third time with Google. We can connect those authentication providers into single user. And at the end, user will have same data, but it can be logged any way she like. This architecture is just great by design. It's quite future-proof. If you want to add new ways to sign in, we don't have to create a new account. We just add a new authentication way, like maybe some biometrics will be the future. Maybe someday nobody will be using Facebook. Maybe you would like to do our iris scan or something. There's a study that says that forcing registration too early can cause more than 85% of users to abandon the product. And I think this is true. If the trust is already established, like for example, Facebook, I don't have a problem, I can register there. But when I am seeing a new application, quite often I just uninstall it because it just asks me for email and my shoe size and whatever, and I don't want that to give that much information to them, and I don't give them a chance. But but is it really necessary? Sometimes those applications don't really need it. But how about letting user to sign in anonymously? User will think that he's anonymous, and it will be, but in the implementation, we will still have the user object, so we can still associate some data to it, track it, but anonymously. And later on, this kind of user can be converted to normal one with email or maybe Facebook or whatever, once the trust will be established. So we are lowering the bar, the entry threshold for the user. So maybe we can attract more users, right? And this is also done in a single line of code. Just single line, similar to the example I was showing you before. And maybe would you consider have it in your app now, if it's not some time consuming? In my opinion, this can increase the chance of success. This is the screenshot of the Firebase web console tool. Here we can see on the left-hand side authentication ways how user can sign in. So here, email password is enabled and anonymous. Otherwise, are disabled. This is really easy to turn it on. There's a toggle, but this one is cut. It should be here. And on the other side, we have the user lists. We can reset them password or do some other actions to them. There's also a tool for email setup. So email setup can be time-consuming. For example, when we are using AWS, we need to do some additional actions. Sometimes even a DevOps is required. We need some knowledge here. But with this tool, even a non-technical person can do it. And it doesn't have to be a developer. This is just something that we can click. We can provide translations here, and we can set even SMS verification if you need it. Of course, it has some limitations. It is limited, closed down feature, but it might be good enough. And sometimes the good enough is just enough. Okay. But applications are made out of features, right? And most features involve some kind of data. So here the Cloud Firestore comes in. It's a NoSQL database where app can access data via subscriptions. We define what slice of data you want to subscribe, and once the data in the collection has been modified, we'll see it almost immediately. It also integrates quite well with the authentication module I was showing you. We can create some rules about writing permission or reading permission based on the other module. There's a web-based browser for it. It's really quite weak. It's just a huge JSON tree. It's much less powerful than SQL, but for some projects, for less technical people, it can be okay. And the last thing great about Cloud Firestore is that it has offline mode support. So once we log in and we get some data, the data will be there. We don't have to refetch it every time. But features are not made entirely of data, right? There's also some business logic needed. And Cloud Functions, the thing I was mentioning before, which makes Firebase a real serverless, allow us to write custom logic in JS that can easily be deployed and run via endpoint or via the database hook. It was really well with React Native because both of those technologies work in the same language. It can be TypeScript if you want. So it can increase the team velocity because if people are full stack, they don't need to wait for other people, right? They can take other people's responsibilities and they can just finish the feature from start to the end. But also, if you want to have our custom backend, for example, maybe in Python, you can also work with those functions via the endpoints, right? So this will lead to some kind of microservices architecture. And then there's also Firebase API for binding for Python. So it also can be integrated in a different way. There are also other use cases where Firebase with React Native, we can use them together. But this time, I would like to skip those serverless features and focus on the standalone services. This is how we have been using at STX Next multiple times already. So, for example, for push notifications, we use Firebase Cloud Messaging, which has become de facto the standard for it, as GCM is going to be shut down in just a few weeks. I'm reminding you, just a few weeks. This Google Analytics, of course, which sometimes it's not enough, I agree, but we can always support it with BigQuery, which is part of Google Cloud Platform, same as Firebase. So it integrates really well. At the end, you will get a single bill from all of those services. There's also Crashlytics, which was formerly a Fabric, that's what it was called. It's for stability reporting. There are better solutions for React Native as it's working on the native code, not JavaScript, but integrating really well with the whole Firebase, and sometimes it just can be good enough. We don't have to go with Sentry or anything. So why not to use more features that Firebase offers? Because faster development means also faster iterations. So we can validate ideas faster and adapt to changes also quicker. We spend less resources on development, so maybe we have more resources later to adapt. It's easier to prototype, to create an MVP, maybe, but it's also good to create some experimental features we see might have some potential, but we are just not sure. We don't want to invest too much. And by lowering the entry threshold, because less knowledge is needed, right? We just have this solution with JavaScript. It opens new opportunities. Sometimes it's just not possible to have an end-to-end solution with sophisticated backend. Or maybe you just want to focus more on product design or any other service like marketing, because it's also important. It's quite often just not enough priorities to that. So the code is just not really everything. But of course, there is no rose without thorns. It has its disadvantages. As serverless, it has all serverless problems. We are relying on an external service which we do not own. We are vendor locked. Pricing is never guaranteed. One day we might have the same situation like we had with Google Maps 1 year ago when the prices skyrocketed. Nobody could predict that. Firebase for now is really cheap. The free tier has quite high quota. We can create nice apps for hundreds and even thousands of users for free for now. There's a calculator so you can calculate the pricing for you. Would it work, would it not? But also one of the disadvantages is that it has only no SQL database. So if you have developers who were working with relational databases, they might need some extra training because they need to change the way they think about data. They need to adjust the way they work. They need extra techniques like maybe data redundancy or something else. There's a problem also that there's no data center in Europe, no Amsterdam, no Frankfurt. It's a little bit US-centric for now. And the most important thing for me is that we all love Python here. And there might be a library that would work for your project in Python, where it can do a lot for you, and there's just no counterpart for Node.js. Or maybe you just want to develop a backend in Python because we just like it, because it's great. So what can we do? So how to get the most of it, of the stack? We can use maybe the microservices architecture. What if we just want to have backend using something else than JavaScript? Maybe, let's say, we are Europe's largest Python software house. We have amazing Python developers, and we want to use Firebase also. Or maybe we don't trust Google, because we don't trust. It can be. Paradoxically, Firebase can lead to more complexity for both development and deployment, because we don't know the ecosystem. We have been working all of our life for us as maybe Python or some other backend developer. It might just not work for you because everything is just different here. But at the end, Firebase with React Native, plus maybe backend of your choice, preferably Python, of course, it can be a thing. It does not mean we just have found a holy grail of mobile development here, not at all. But personally, I think we are just getting a little bit closer, and this way it could be more efficient than it ever was. Thank you.
Many thanks to Bartek for his presentation. We have 3 minutes for Q&A, so one, maybe two questions.
Hi. Thank you for the great presentation, Bartek. It was really interesting. You've stressed that it's a really sweet combo, React Native and Firebase, when you want to do a validation and rapid learning. I'm wondering if Firebase supports A/B testing in any way, so you can validate different ideas at the same time
Yes.
and think what is better.
Well, there is a module for A/B testing included there. You can, of course, incorporate. You can incorporate together with Google Analytics, right? Because this is the way how to make it work. So there's a production-ready module for it. You just need to implement it here, and using a lot of things can be done for you. It's also using the remote config. It can be turned off when you like. Don't have to update the app manually. So all of those services from the slide with services listed, they can be working together, and this is something you could think about.
Did you ever see a heavy A/B testing, like tens of different options being tested at the same time, splitting user base in?
No. I was only implementing it for like A/B testing when it's only A and V, no C and D, and this is why I was working on it.
You think it would handle it?
I want to check. Take a look. I cannot we can discuss it later.
Cool. Thank you.
So once again, a big round of applause for Bartek.
Thank you.